sincere condolences to the Bullock family. Hank Bullock passed on Sunday evening, and they just stated yesterday. But I think the biggest thing that I can say about Hank is that he was more than just a Spartan. He was a nationally recognized, nationally renowned college and pro football coach, and he impacted so many young people along the way. He continued to bleed green after his retirement, and I'll never forget the first day that I was in the office and I was hired. The very first day I was in the office, and Coach Bullock was still had his office there as the defensive coordinator. At that point in time, he was still in his office cleaning it out, and I came over and talked to me about retirement, actually. And but just the first in terms of the retirement system, actually. But great guy. Three of his grandsons played for us. Obviously, I know Shane very well, and Chuck is on our staff. But our condolences and our prayers and thoughts are with he and his family. So we'll move from there. But in regards to the Rutgers game, chance to get back on winning track. Defensively played very, very well. No third down conversions, tough to run against. 0 big plays, shutout, all the things that you need. On the offensive side of the ball, we got explosive plays. We're able to run the ball effectively. Stalled out a couple times on 4th and 1, but got some things done on that end of the spectrum as well, and came away with a 27-0 win, and a step forward, I think, in terms of what we needed to do. This game's a program game, much like it was probably in 12 with the Minnesota game. I think the standard is, as I told our football team yesterday, I don't care where you're at in the scheme of things within your schedule. When you win your 6th game, you sort of meet the minimum in terms of accomplishment. You're bowl eligible, you have a chance for a winning season, things of that nature. And so we'll build on that. We'll deal with that as we move forward. And the only thing that we can sort of change is the future. While we're disappointed in where we're at, we still have an opportunity to play ourselves forward, and that's what we'll do. And when you look at Maryland right now, they've gone through some challenges themselves, a lot of injuries, much like us. Probably later than earlier, their injuries have affected so many different things in their program as well. Outstanding running backs in McFarland, number 20, League number 5. McFarland really averages 7.76 per carry, yards after contact, number 1 in the Big Ten. They've struggled at quarterback, having to use 4 different ones this past week because of injuries, etc. Defensively, Brooks is the guy, number 25. He's an outstanding football player, and I think he's one of the top leaders, if not the leader, in tackles per game. Coach Loxley comes back to Maryland after being gone for a while. I think that has an outstanding resume, and we'll have his guys playing very, very well as they come over. I know as we get into this, we go into Thanksgiving weekend, but as always, I appreciate the Spartan support in terms of who is there and how we handle things. So I'll take some questions and go from there.
Mark, you mentioned you call this a program game. I assume that's big for your seniors, obviously. What have you seen? I guess what did you see in the response to them after last week? Maybe a mood change watching film after your first win in 2 months, and what does it mean for those seniors to get that one more game?
I've said this many times. Our guys have stayed the course in terms of their attitude and their chemistry and their enthusiasm and energy. They truly have, and it's been impressive, very, very impressive. So we've gotten good senior leadership from our guys. Things don't always go the way that you plan them, but at the same time, they've responded accordingly. And I thought that this past weekend, I'm sure you guys interviewed them and everything, a little bit of a weight was lifted from their shoulders, a little bit just getting the win. So it's been a difficult time progressing through those things, but some of it's, the 4 games previous, or 5 previous, a little bit the off weeks, having to deal with being off those 2 weeks, surrounding those things. So, but we stayed focused. We kept going. And I'm impressed with that, and look forward to that this week as well.
Mark, I don't know if you had a chance to see it. Urban Meyer was talking about the program and the struggles lately, and he was very complimentary of you as his friendship and you as a coach. but said to him what he eyed was development of players and recruiting. Do you agree maybe that that's accurate?
Well, I have a great deal of respect for Urban Meyer, but you know, when you're in the thick of it here, you know a little bit more about the program here. And I've always said that, you know, we've done a good job developing our players. I mean, Doc Questenar was a two-star player coming out, had 0 scholarship offers, yet he becomes a first-round pick. Jack Conklin becomes a first-round pick. Trey Waynes was a two-star player, becomes a first-round pick. So we've had guys develop within the program, and we've been able to win games along the way. We've had some different players come in that were higher recruited guys, 4-star guys and things of that nature, and they've been able to become good players as well. But the reality of the situation is that players come, and I don't care where you're at, they got to be developed, and they grow as people. We've had, if you look at our situation this year, and you know, right now where we're at, there's a lot of reasons, and I understand that, you know, but the ones that are out of our control are injuries. So consequently, we're playing young players, especially on the offensive line. You know, I would say on our offensive line, we probably had, what do we have, 11 different starters, which is not usually good. But there hasn't been stability at that position along the offensive line. So injuries, I would say some officiating decisions, I'm not going to call them wrong decisions, but they didn't go our way. I would say that our schedule, the way it was propped up, was difficult. And I would also say that we've had some drop balls and some issues in the deep part of the field with guys judging the ball. I mean, you can for sure find 2 more wins in that area. The youth of our football team is right now is on display, but I think we have good players, and I think they have a tremendous chance of developing it into outstanding players, especially when you look across the board at certain positions. So, you know, I guess I agree with part of it, but we play our way into those situations, and I also believe that success breeds confidence. So if you're successful and all of a sudden you find yourself 7-0 or 8-0 like the 2011 team, then you're much more confident going into the next game. Like the other aspect occurs as well. You just start to spiral downward a little bit. You start saying, okay, what's next? I think our players have remained above that, and that, like I said, that's been impressive. But we are where we're at. We still have a chance to have a winning season, and that's all that we can affect right now. And Maryland's up on the clock, and we're going to get ourselves ready to play against Maryland and figure everything else out after the fact. So I answered the question, but I appreciate his remarks as well.
Mark, yeah, obviously the redshirt rule has changed the way you can use guys. You got Dobbs, Wright, Mosley, and Halleck all sitting at 4 games with 1 or possibly 2 left. What's the thought on using them and potentially burning redshirts there?
Yeah, I think that if guys are playing, you know, if a guy's a starter, I mean, he's got to play on. And with the respect to some of these guys, you just don't know what's going to happen. For me, my thought process is that you really don't redshirt until your 5th year. Much like Trey Waynes redshirted and then went out after his 3rd year. Jarrell Worthy redshirted and went out after his 3rd year of playing. So you redshirt, whether you take it now or whether you take it after the next year, or you take it like, you mean basically Kevin Jarvis, if he plays in 1 game, we can redshirt him still. So you really don't play, you figure out your 5th year until your 5th year comes. From my perspective, if you're playing 30 plays, if you're in the mix of playing, then you play on. But you have discussions with your players and see what they want to do. So we've had discussions with 2 of the 3 of those guys, and that's what they want to do. They want to play on. I also think it's, when you sit there and you say, hey, I played as a true freshman and I was not redshirted, that's like a gold star on your shirt. You know, that you didn't redshirt as a freshman, you were integral in terms of playing, and you consistently give more readiness and more coaching when you're playing. There is no experience like going out in front of 80,000 people or 75,000 people and playing in a game, even if it's for 1 game, even if it's for 5 or 10 plays. That's a tremendous asset to carry with you into the next season. So in the case of Dobbs, he's slated to start. In the case of Trey Mosley, he's played 30 plays a game here the last number of games. So he's an integral part of our offense as well, so I see them playing on. Brandon, right now, he's either a 2 or a 3, depending on how much he's playing, but again, a guy that we don't hesitate to put him in the game. Tate Halleck played just on special teams, we'll probably redshirt him. And then on it goes, because we have a couple other guys in those situations as we go forward, going into the 13th game. So, good question, but we're trying to deal with them as individual decisions and let it play out. But you really can't forecast the future, what's going to happen, whether the guy gets injured. You look at Jalen Naylor, he's played in 2 games now, so he'll be a sophomore next year as well. So he didn't redshirt as a freshman, but had an injury as a sophomore and allowed for him to be redshirted.
Mark, you mentioned in your opening remarks a little bit about the 2012 game in Minnesota. I'm just curious, how often do you reference that this week? Some of these guys were probably pretty young or might not have really understood the stakes of that game. I know that's a game that you held in high regard. Do you reference that very often this week, or is there kind of a new message with this group and what they need?
No, I referenced that last week as well. What we have to do to meet a basic threshold. So I referenced it and talked about it, and I do think when I look back at 2012, we had to go up in the cold and win away from home, and that set us onto a string of 38-5 the next 42 to 43 games. So that was a mindset type game, a program game, or what I would call a program game.
As far as Raekwon, I think 40 straight starts and 1 off the 10 mark. What does that say for him, and how difficult is it for a guy, especially in the interior defensive line, to get to that point, longevity?
Well, yeah, I think it's difficult just from a health standpoint to be able to maintain and be a starter every game for that length of time. I know that Marcus Rush, I think, missed 1 game and maybe 52 out of 53 or something like that, something outstanding. But not many people have been able to do that, so that's a credit to him and his durability. And when you look at what we would call our Iron Man people, guys who perform highly in the weight room, I think that corresponds. But he's been a warrior for us, and he'll have that opportunity again.
I was going to ask you about Raekwon, so that question is gone, but in terms of your whole senior class as a whole, when you look at this group, what will you remember about them the most? I know probably each class has its own significance to you personally.
Yeah, what I remember about this senior class will be their ability to stay focused, I think, to be able to weather some storms as they move through it. In 2010, we had a bounce back year, won 10 football games, and then, last year we had a lot of close games. Could have won a couple of those, but they maintained who they were. I was extremely impressed that our 5 defensive players that could have gone out early chose to stay. That was a huge statement, I think, for this program. It's something that I'll remember those guys all for, whether that's Raekwon, or Panasuk, or David Dow, or Joe Bocci, or Kenny Willikis. All 5 of those guys could have went. That was a testament to their attitude towards this football team. And then again this year, just stay in the course. And some things you can control, some things you can't. The things that we can't control, we want to do that, but other things that we can't control, we have to deal with. But they maintain a positive approach, and sometimes, as much as anything, that's to be applauded. And I'll respect them forever for that reason. We've got some individual guys in there like Brian Lewerke that, there's no other Spartan quarterback in the history of football here at Michigan State that's thrown for over 7,000 yards and run for over 1,000. That's very impressive. Darryl Stewart leading the Big Ten in catches at the time of his injury. We're able to go to a bowl game. He'll be back. When you look at that, and then you look at Raekwon starting 40 straight games, you look at some of the different things that have been accomplished in that area. Some guys with a lot of, I think Mike Panasuk is very, very close to that as well. So you got some individual guys that have done some great things, and then you got some other things that we fell a little short. So, but I'll keep pushing forward.
Mark, since Joe's been out, we've kind of had different looks at the linebacker position. Is this new thing with Tyreek in the middle and Noah at the same, is that something that you expect going forward?
Yeah, we'll sort of make that decision game time after practices on Tuesday and Wednesday of this week. And really it'll depend on what we need, who we need where. All three have sort of played in there. So that's a good problem to have, I think, so we can adjust with that. And all three have played around the other positions. So, but you know, when you lose Joe Bocci, I mean, it's like losing the quarterback of your defense. Certainly, and he's an outstanding player, and we've got to pick up the pieces in that regards. I do think Tyreek played well in there this past week, though.
I'm just curious, what, I guess, attributes of those specific players is kind of...
You know, they're all a little bit different. You know, I think Antoine's a little bit more quick twitch, a little less weight. Tyreek gives you a thumper a little bit. And Noah is a guy that's a younger player, but can really run and is athletic. So they're all a little bit different, just like all players are a little bit different. But they'll all be ready to play, and I've been impressed with the leadership of all three. All three of them.
You mentioned that obviously success breeds confidence. So with Cody White and having the performance that he had last weekend, how do you hope that he builds off of that? And maybe how long have you been waiting for him to have a performance like he had on Saturday?
Yeah, Cody's an outstanding player. And, you know, I was a little bit remiss in not talking about him based on the Rutgers game. You know, he had a tremendous performance. You know, I think 9 catches in the first half for 119 yards and 3 touchdowns. I really would have had a fourth, but the defender made a tremendous play on it. But he's always been a very, you know, last year had the injury bug, played with the cast on his hand, missed I think 4 or 5 games. This year he's been in the mix, you know, from early on. You know, he's been a starter for us, and I think with Daryl's departure, he's taken on that lead role as the guy, as the go-to guy, and he's responded. He's shown leadership, I think, within our football team, and he's taken a step forward in that process. And he's a solid guy, and he's made big plays for us. Really, since his freshman year, you can look back on it and say, Cody White made this play, or he made that play. So he's been very consistent, I would say.
Did you like his one-handed catch?
Yeah, I like every catch. And it was impressive.
Mark, we see Joe obviously listed among the guys that are going to be honored on Senior Day. Was there any thought to keeping him out of that, given the reason for his suspension and the fact that his career is over?
No, I felt like I'm treating this just like an injury. You know, we went through the appeal process. On both sides of the fence in that process, I thought they did their due diligence. They took their time with it, and the decision went against us. But, you know, if you know Joe Bocci and you know how hard he's worked and the leadership that he's shown on this football team over the course of time, I have to be respectful and honor that. You know, I want him to be a part of that day. So he's been a great player for this program, and I hope he has a great career after. But, you know, we obviously can't play him, but we went through the process with the appeal and, you know, just didn't win it.
From signing day up through a guy's last game, you talk about them as football players, but Raekwon, aside from being a guy that will play in the NFL, is a Hall of Fame kid, person, a human. For fans that don't get to know him like we do, can you talk about Raekwon, the individual, the person?
Yeah, you know, when I sat down and talked with about whether he would be coming back or not, talk about different things and putting his name in the NFL process and all this kind of stuff, he said, whoa, Coach, he goes, what if I don't want to leave? What if I want to stay here and get my degree? What if I want to be a part of this football team? Do we even have to do that? I said, no, absolutely not. So that's how that conversation went. And Raekwon's always been a very big giver. He's always been a person that's looked for other people, towards other people, and gave himself to those people. He's been a strong leader on our football team. He's one of our captains. You know, he's been that guy. Very unselfish, made himself even a better player as he's been able to move through the process. And he'll have his degree, and he's just an outstanding person. He's been through some tough times in his life, and you know, has made it through. Like so many of our players, they've had some things happen to them that have been difficult to endure. But he is truly a champion person. He is he's a different kind of guy. You don't find those type of guys walking around too often. Very unselfish.
You mentioned Jalen a little bit earlier. How much does, I guess, what did you see from him in the first game back, and how much does his return affect maybe what you can do personnel-wise? I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but Cody playing in the slot a lot.
Yeah, Jalen caught 5 passes this past week, and he played pretty much half the game. I think maybe 35 to 40 snaps. So it's his first game back, a little bit sore coming off of that, but I feel like he'll be back to full speed. He's a guy that can move around, obviously. He's played all the different positions. He's played at X, he's played at Z, he's played at the slot receiver. So we can move him around, and he's an outstanding football player, and we should benefit from him being back. Just gives us another guy, we're another guy up. So we'll get some other guys back as we go as well.
We got time for a couple more, Steve.
Mark, I have a couple of things. You mentioned Joe. Now that his situation is settled, I was just curious if there's anything else you could offer, I guess, in terms of the circumstances. I mean, was it a mistake on his part that he didn't know what was going on, or a new rule where there was a miscommunication of
No, I think those things are left set for the appeal process. I don't think I would want to get involved in that.
Okay. And I also wanted to ask you about Dominique Long. He's been kind of a special teams ace for you guys this year. Seems like he's making every tackle. Why is he so good there, and sort of mentally, I mean, for a guy to take on that role, and it seems like he embraces it and thrives in it, what is it about him that he really takes to that?
He's got tenacity, number one. He plays every play as hard as he can play. He's not intimidated by the situation. He really plays behind Xavier at their safety position, and also he plays at corner. So he's a guy that can adapt to either one. He's played all 3 years, so he's an engineering student, very good student. A very explosive player. He's an 11-1 long jump guy and about a 38, 39 vertical jump guy. And he's about 6'2", almost 200 pounds. So he has the physical attributes. He was a receiver in high school, so he has the ball skills. And I see him as being a guy that will continue to play forward in even more situations and more plays. So he's been a guy that from day one has stepped in and been an intricate part of special teams, whether it's kickoff, punt, punt return, whatever it is.
Does he change anything, I guess, you guys can do in that regard when you know you got a guy you can rely on, or is it just?
Well, he's a dependable guy. You can bet on his intensity and those type of things. He's going to give you his greatest effort, not be intimidated by the situation. So I think his best is yet to come still.
Adam Berghorst is a guy who came in as a baseball player, defensive end, but he's gotten on the field as a tight end, catching passes. Might not have been high on his resume, but it seems like he's helping you there a little bit. Can you talk about his development this year? Down the road, is he a tight end, defensive end, what he's given you so far?
Yeah, we're going to see down the road what he is, but we moved him to tight end probably about four weeks ago or so. He's responded. He was a tight end in high school. He's got soft hands. He runs pretty good routes for a guy that size, but he's 6'6", 6'7", 262 pounds right now. Fluid athlete. He will play baseball. We'll see where the football thing takes him in terms of what position, but I see him as a guy, I just tell our coaches, use him or lose him. And so we've used him on the offensive side of the ball, and he's given us depth there, and he's played himself in a situation where he will play on Saturday. And we're not playing guys just for fun, so he gives you a big guy that can be on the line of scrimmage and control the line of scrimmage to some degree, even as a freshman. So I'm not sure where his future is, but I know he has a great future, a big-time future as a football player and probably as a baseball player too, but as a football player from our regard.
That's good. One more, Jen.
Hey, Mark, take one more. Cole Jones is a guy that made a big impact early in his career, missed half of last season and all of this season. Can you talk about maybe what, I don't want to say what he could have been, but how that process has gone all this year and whether that door is closed this year or even next year?
Yeah, I'd say the door is closed this year. He's worked extremely hard to try and come back from his back injury. And but every time he's never really been able to get on the field yet in pads. And so, as a football player, you have to be able to, I think, cross that threshold before you can take the next step. So, but he continues to work and he keeps a positive attitude and continues to lead. He's got his master's degree in finance now, so depending on his, I guess, durability and what he's able to accomplish physically, will decide whether he can take another step forward as a football player. And that's the decision he'll have to make, and we'll have to make as we go forward. But as of right now, he's just working off the field without pads.
Is that a possibility for a 6th year? Is that kind of?
I guess the possibility exists from a NCAA standpoint. I would say the possibility exists from that standpoint. But you have to I think you have to get yourself in. You have to get on the field, see if how you're able to withstand the uphold, being able to play offensive line first.
So he's still conditioning as a football player, you know?
He's conditioning it in terms as I would say from a physical therapy standpoint, limited running, limited movements, and those type of things. So we'll see how it all transfers. We good?